Hello, my friends. One of the most fascinating and infuriating things about Amberlynn Reed is her inability to take responsibility for anything. Whatever happens to her, or whatever happens in her life, she blames it on something or somebody else. And the psychology behind that is called the locus of control. What is locus of control? First of all, what does locus mean? Not locust, like the bug, but the locus is a particular position, point, or place. So by saying locus of control, it's basically saying where the control comes from. So what is locus of control? It says it refers to the degree to which an individual feels a sense of agency in regard to his or her own life. In other words, sort of like how much control do we feel like we have over our life, rather than being affected by external factors. Someone with an internal locus of control will believe that the things that happen to them are greatly influenced by their own abilities, actions, or mistakes, or decisions. A person with an external locus of control will tend to feel that other forces, such as random chance, environmental factors, or the actions of others, are more responsible for the events that occur in the individual's life. Sound familiar? And then it says, like other constructs in personality psychology, locus of control falls on a spectrum. So here we have the locus of control spectrum. We'll put LOC for locus of control, okay? And just keep in mind, I am just an armchair psychologist. I'm just giving my opinion here, but if I had to guess, I would say most of us fall kind of in this range right here, where we understand that most things that happen to us are under our control, but there are some external factors as well. But when we face these external factors, we also understand that it's our responsibility to respond correctly to them. I would guess that Amber falls somewhere around this range. Probably not 100% external, but pretty close. Because even when she has a moment of clarity, and we're going to get into some examples here in just a little bit, but she will say stuff like, I wasn't paying attention, or I made a mistake, but then she'll walk that back and then blame the mistake on some external factor. There's only one person that I've found on the internet that I think is probably closer to 100%, and that would be Dark Side Phil. But that's a story for another day. So I want to give a shout out real quick because somebody sent me this suggestion and kind of brought this to my attention. And this is the name that they gave me to share: Princess Pirate Pickle Pants. So thank you, Princess Pirate Pickle Pants, for the suggestion. And she also gave me a few ideas of kind of examples that we're going to go through today. If you'd like to like and subscribe, that would literally be hectic. I'm not going to lie. So we'll start off with a couple that aren't really that deep, like little appetizers. But do keep in mind as we go forward that when she talks about her anxiety, that is sort of her distancing herself from her decisions. When she says, because of my anxiety, I did this or that, that is her using that external force to then explain why she did a thing. So this first one, she was going to eat some olives and she opened the jar and it didn't pop, right? And most of us would just be like, oh, it's not fresh. I don't think I want these. It's not that big a deal. But she had to say it was my anxiety. My anxiety was telling me not to eat these olives. It was a big deal.
So as you guys know, I was having anxiety because my new thing of olives didn't pop, and it's supposed to pop when you open the jar. That means, fresh goodness. It didn't pop, so my anxiety said that it was poisoned and it was molded over. I was having so much anxiety, but I wanted to stare anxiety in the face and fear in the face and say, you know what, I'm stronger than you. So I started eating the olives, but then there was a reaction channel that was like, girl, do not use those olives. Do not eat those olives. That jar was supposed to pop. It didn't pop. Don't get sick. She scared me, so now, no, I'm not eating the poisoned olives.
But then notice there at the end, when she finally decided not to eat the olives, it wasn't even her decision. It was somebody else that convinced her not to eat the olives. So back in 2022, Amber had an ankle injury. Basically, she was walking at night and tripped and fell.
I don't know, I just feel so disconnected.
It ended up being just a sprained ankle, but she made like 4 videos about it, including her trip to the hospital, and acted like her foot had been cut off or something. She really made a big deal out of it. But here is where she's describing what happened.
So I was vlogging, and my intention was to express to you guys like how I'm feeling lately, like being disconnected and detached from just anything that I used to enjoy, and that includes vlogging. And I wasn't paying attention because I was vlogging, and my foot, some of my foot missed the step. I was walking on a sidewalk and half of my foot did not reach the sidewalk, and I ended up falling.
Now, there's a lot to unpack there when it comes to the locus of control, because she starts off by saying, you know, I was vlogging, so I wasn't paying attention. And your first instinct may be to say, well, she's taking responsibility by saying I wasn't paying attention. But think about what she was saying about why she wasn't paying attention. She was like, I was vlogging because I was wanting to tell all of you all of this stuff. I was disconnected and all that. So I was vlogging. Implying that if I wasn't vlogging for you, I probably wouldn't have fallen. All she had to do was say, I was vlogging and I wasn't paying attention, but she had to say, I was intending to do it for you, all this stuff. I was going to tell you all this stuff specifically. And then after that, she then sort of blamed the sidewalk in another video.
I was walking on the sidewalk, obviously, and I was vlogging. You guys saw in the clip, and you'll see in this photo that there's like this grass right next to the sidewalk. My foot landed half on the sidewalk, and the other half of my foot landed like in between the concrete of the sidewalk and the grass, and like a little divot.
Now, remember, the fall happened at night, so it was important enough for her to show that sidewalk that she went back during the daytime to take a picture of it. And it almost sounds like she's blaming her foot in those clips too, where she's saying, my foot landed here, my foot did that, you know, almost like her foot had a mind of its own. But as far as the locus of control and the ankle situation type deal, it really just came down to she was saying, I was trying to make a vlog for you, and if I wasn't doing that, I probably wouldn't have fallen. Towards the beginning of the Beck era, Amber was getting some pushback because she wasn't getting Rarity fixed. And everybody was like, you really need to get Rarity fixed. And she just kind of wouldn't. And eventually she decided to blame the vet.
Rarity is not fixed. I took Rarity to a vet about, I want to say it was about 7 months ago, and they said that she was too young to get fixed, and they said to wait until she's the right age. I don't understand it because I didn't think that she was too young, but for some reason that vet said that she was. So when she was the right age, I actually wasn't living there anymore, because as you guys know, I moved kind of far away from where I used to live in my apartments, and now I'm living with Becky. So I didn't call there, I called somewhere else. And they were like, you know, this is the best place to get your cat spayed or neutered, and I'm like, okay, I got this. But when I called, they're like, okay, leave a voicemail, we'll call you back, da-da-da-da. So I left a voicemail. They ended up calling me back. But I was sleepy when they called me back, and I always have my phone on silent for the most part. Didn't know that they actually called me. So they left me a voicemail. So we played phone tag a couple times. And finally, the person was like, we will call you about a week before your scheduled appointment. They still haven't called me.
So as you can hear, she was like, so I did everything right. I played phone tag with them. I called them, and now it's their responsibility. You know, they're supposed to call me, and they're not doing it. Now, from my recollection or remembrance, if you're Amber, I think she eventually did get Rarity fixed, but it was just the fact that she would not just take responsibility. She had to blame it on the vet. So if you've been around Girl World very long, you'll probably remember the binge monster. Basically, when Amber wanted food and wanted to eat a lot of it, and somebody told her no, she was just mean. She didn't get her way, and she would be mean about it. But instead of saying, I'm being mean or I'm doing something, she blamed it on some other entity called the monster.
Like, I've talked to a lot of people, and they think I should talk to you about, like, when, like, the big monster comes, like, you do everything in your power to help me, you know? I know, it gets...
And look at Beck's face there. They are like, I tried. What more can I do? And then listen to Amber's response.
I know, it gets scary. It's hard.
Mean.
not like mean abusive.
She says, I know it's scary. I know. Almost like, what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do about it. I know it's scary, but you just got to deal with it.
Not abusive, no, but you get mean and we've argued about it.
Yeah. Which is very common. I've talked to some people but really like off of camera, we should like talk, you know?
And then of course she goes on to say, I've talked to a lot of people. This is common. And yeah, like people deal with this all the time. It's not that big a deal. But again, she's blaming her actions on a demon inside of her, basically.
When the binge is possessing me, oh, who cares? It's not that big of a deal. It's just 6,000 calories. I'll just get back on it tomorrow. Like, no, that's not really what I'm thinking. That's just what the binge monster is thinking. And I know a lot of people who binge, they completely understand. Like, I woke up swollen. I'm lethargic. I don't want to walk.
Notice that she's basically saying, these are not my thoughts. I don't think this way. It's the monster. The monster completely takes over. I am not responsible for anything that happens. In 2016, Amber uploaded a video called My Aunt Left Me Because I'm Fat. And it's pretty clear once you sort of hear the story, and she actually apologizes for that, and I'll show you that clip in a second. But if you know Amber at all, we can all safely assume that her aunt stopped talking to her because she is toxic and she's a horrible person. But instead of taking any accountability or responsibility, it was because I'm fat.
My aunt has completely stopped talking to me. In December, she blocked me on Facebook. She blocked me on her cell phone, blocked my number completely. I have no way of getting a hold of her whatsoever. And the reasoning is because I'm fat. Okay. I'm not kidding. I know that sounds bad saying it like that, but the truth is it's because I'm fat.
That was her excuse. And that is what she blames for a lot of stuff. Her like to dislike ratio is always in the red. You know, it's always far more dislikes than likes. And all the hate that she gets and all that, she just blames it on fat phobia. People don't like me because I'm fat. Instead of internalizing and seeing what could be the problem, it's my weight. So later she made a video that was basically her owning up to a bunch of lies, which it was very stupid. In fact, it's the video where we got this gem.
This video is so raw, you guys. Fuck me. Like, damn.
But in that, she apologizes, sort of, for talking about her aunt like that and using her fatness as an excuse, because it turns out her aunt found out about the video and was like, did you just say? Was not happy about it. But the problem is when she sort of tries to take accountability or responsibility for the relationship ending, she ends up, instead of blaming her weight, she blames like mental illness. And she describes herself as though it's something out of her control.
I uploaded a video about how my aunt doesn't talk to me anymore because I'm fat. I had no idea they were going to see it. I had no idea my aunt even watched my YouTube anymore or anything. And they were greatly offended. But at the time, I was vulnerable and I was upset. And I really felt like blaming my weight on everything was just like the easiest way to go. It's hard. Like, I have a weight issue and I have, mental issues that cause, me to be bigger. You don't just get this big for no reason. It just doesn't work that way. Like, of course you can get, overweight. That's normal, but to become so morbidly obese, there's something wrong. And I kind of wanted to ignore all that and just be like, oh, my aunt doesn't talk to me because I'm fat. I just thought it would be easier. There's more to me than my weight when it comes to me and my aunt's, relationship. I pushed her away because of just who I am and how I am as a person. I don't know. That's really all I want to say regarding that is, no, my aunt, she didn't stop talking to me because I'm fat. She stopped talking to me because of the issues I brought upon her, I guess. And if she's watching this, I am so sorry. And I really just, I wish I could change who I am as a person.
So yeah, when she says, I wish I could change who I am as a person, that's her sort of distancing herself from herself or from her personality, you know? Basically saying, I was born this way. It's out of my control. I can't help it. But she also blames her weight on external factors.
Because those are the reasons why I am in therapy. Those are the reasons why I have BPD. That is why I have anxiety, paranoia, why I reached almost 600 pounds at one point, why I turned to food for emotional reasons, why I'm a food addict. The list can literally go on because of my childhood.
So she's basically blaming everything bad that's ever happened to her, all the anxiety that she may or may not have, all the BPD that she may or may not have, and the weight on her childhood, on her parents. Basically saying, if it weren't for my parents, I would not be in this situation right now. I would be in California living the hot girl summer.
If I didn't have childhood trauma and I didn't have these weight issues, where do I see myself now? Honestly, probably like in LA. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really know what I'd be doing for a job or anything like that. Like, I don't like to hype myself up too hard, but I feel like I would be an attractive person if I was thin. I mean, I think I'm pretty now. I mean, sometimes I feel super ugly, but my mom like is gorgeous. She was super gorgeous when she was younger. And I know without all my extra, I would look very, very different. And I think I would really be successful in LA. I don't really know what I would be doing, but I think I would be thriving. I have a feeling I would be thriving.
My life would be great, but my parents. I mean, that kind of really sums up her entire external locus of control right there. No matter what negative thing has happened to me in my life, it's not my fault. It's my childhood. It's my parents. But there's more. Another thing we know about Amberlynn, and has been the case basically forever, is that she doesn't drive. She won't drive. She won't get a driver's license. And instead of just saying, I don't want to drive, I don't like driving, it's car anxiety.
It's like I have car anxiety when I'm in the car, but then I also have car anxiety when I'm not in the car. Like, I have car anxiety for the people who are driving. It's a lot.
There's some external factor. She just was born with car anxiety, you guys.
My car anxiety mixed with the horrible heavy rain said, I don't feel like driving anymore for the night. I don't feel like being in the car anymore.
To the point where she even said at one point, I sure hate being a burden on everybody. I'd like to be able to drive myself places, but that dadgum car anxiety, I'm just so scared. I can't help it, you know?
I kind of like wish I wasn't so scared to drive, and I don't know, part of me wants to maybe try again. I know that's like coming out of left field, and that's like crazy coming from me because I have a very big anxiety and fear when it comes to me driving. I don't even like being in the car with other people, but it's like transportation. I have to get from one place to another, some way or another, right? I would love to drive and just kind of have that freedom of, you know, being able to go places when I want to and not having to rely on destiny. I think that would be freaking awesome, but then it's like, I'm so scared.
So Amber has tried Ozempic or semaglutide or GLP-1 a few times, and there's always been some external reason as to why she can't continue taking it. One time it was that it was expired, that they gave her individual syringes and they're not supposed to do that. So it was the med spa's fault.
Last time I took semaglutide, it stopped working because the syringes I got were pre-filled, which you are not supposed to do that because when you pre-fill a syringe, it expires in 28 days. And through the med spa that I went, they acted as if that was okay. And I know a lot of people were asking, like, did you see a doctor? The person was actually an RN, so they knew what they were talking about, but no one's a robot. People make mistakes.
They messed up and her stuff expired, so she couldn't use it anymore, according to Amber. And then the next time, lo and behold, once she got to a certain point, she was waiting for a shipment and it just didn't come. It came late. And when it came, it was the wrong dose.
Sundays are my semaglutide shot day. Tomorrow's Sunday, and I ain't got my semaglutide. I said in my last vlog that it hasn't even been shipped yet. Well, guess what? My fingers were crossed on my last vlog, and I said, please ship on Saturday, and it did. It is gonna be here days late, but I think that's okay because I messaged the provider and I said, y'all, I'm getting it late. I don't know what happened. And they were just like, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. And I was like, it's fine, but am I still allowed to like increase my dose? Because I'm supposed to be like doubling my dose.
And then after that, the next video, she said this.
It's literally not even working. You guys have been hearing me say that for weeks now. And I was like, oh, fine, I'm going to keep giving it a chance. And then it's late, days late. And then once it does arrive, it's not even the right dose. Like, I'm just so frustrated.
So what was she supposed to do? You know, it was out of her control. Other people messed it up. Something that we learned in the Victims of an Empath video about Beck from Mr. Snowflake was that Amber seemingly was questioning her sexuality for a while, and it's something that the community has sort of brought up from time to time and questioned a little bit. But at one point, she had we'll say a phone fling with a guy named Dalton, and when she described that, it was not that I decided to do this or I had a moment of whatever. It was I was going through a hard time, and so I started drinking, and I was drunk, and that's why it happened.
2023 was a crazy year for me. I shared that I was turning to alcohol because I genuinely was. I was getting drunk like every single night. Like sometimes I would get so drunk that I'd wake up the next morning, I would feel absolutely awful, and I wouldn't remember much from the night prior. But in 2023, during that phase of where I was just like going through a lot, I did reply to Dalton.
So think of how little responsibility is being taken here, right? She's saying that I was drinking, but it wasn't because of my decisions or anything like that. There was so much going on in 2023, and I was just having such a bad year that drove me to drink. And then the drinking drove me to make the decision that I made with Dalton. So she's like double distancing herself from responsibility.
One night I got extremely drunk and he ended up calling me, and things went to a different level than they probably would have if I was sober.
So blaming the alcohol for her decision to do this thing that is clearly, supposedly out of the ordinary for her or out of the realm of possibility. But it wasn't her choice, it was the alcohol. She tends to get cellulitis relatively often. You know, most people rarely get it, but she gets it pretty regularly. And there's always some weird excuse or some reason for it. We're all pretty convinced that it's likely her hygiene, because what happens is with her obesity and maybe lipedema or something, but for the most part, her obesity, her skin, especially around her legs, is stretched to the point where it can have little cracks or abrasions and things like that. And dirty sheets or just being dirty and not showering enough could cause cellulitis. But no, it wasn't anything in her control. It was
the flood.
No, not that flood. According to Amber, sounds like this flood. But it was more likely this flood. And of course, when she talks about losing weight and being able to lose weight, she says it's basically impossible because I've got the demas, lipedema and lymphedema. So because of that, no matter what I do, I just can't lose weight, you know? She says I have to work harder than other people, but she basically makes it sound like she just can't lose weight.
I have lipedema, which makes it to where, like, to lose 1 pound, I have to, like, work 5 times harder or, like, wait 5 times longer to lose that pound. So it's, you know, I've gained weight in sodium, I've gained weight and fat and water, whatever it may be. But, like, since I do have lipedema and lymphedema, my body holds on to water and fluid very, very easily. So I'm holding on to a lot right now. So me gaining that much weight in such a short amount of time for some people would be very shocking. For like the normal person, it's not possible unless you're eating so many calories, it's insane. But someone like me, it's rather easy.
And I don't deny that it is harder to lose weight if you have lipedema and lymphedema, but this really is more about that locus of control, right? So when she can't lose weight, or can't lose weight, she has to blame it on something that she thinks is out of her control. Another recent stupid thing she has said when she was sort of being called out for not drinking enough water. In fact, she had herself admitted that she had not consumed a drop of water in months. And so when she was explaining why she didn't drink much water, it was that she had never been taught to drink water.
But water has never just like been in my, vicinity. I've never been taught to drink it.
Now, I understand as a kid, you just sort of get what you got. Whatever your parents give you, that's what you got. And she claims that they just gave her milk all the time. But first of all, she's an adult now. So at some point, she learned how important water was. But also, again, it just defaults to blaming somebody else. Instead of saying, I just haven't been drinking water, it was my choice. It's, I wasn't taught. Somebody else didn't do something to make me drink water more, At one point, she was supposedly going to be getting weight loss surgery. I didn't think that was ever going to happen. From the moment she mentioned it, I was like, no, that's not going to happen. Absolutely not. Either she's lying or she's delusional. But 100%, I am convinced there's no way on this earth or Mars or Venus that she's ever going to get weight loss surgery. And lo and behold, she did not get weight loss surgery. And she said some pretty stupid stuff when she was trying to explain why she didn't get weight loss surgery.
The fact that I wanted weight loss surgery for 6 months when there wasn't even a moment where I didn't want it is actually a big victory, in my opinion.
But then she just says that, you know what? They even say, if you have doubts, don't get the surgery.
Getting weight loss surgery is a major decision. And they even tell you that if you have doubts at all, don't get the surgery.
And that basically puts the responsibility on them. Like, I'm having doubts, and they said not to do it, The doctors said, if you have doubts, don't do it. And it's pretty clear she was never, ever, ever going to do the work involved or required to get weight loss surgery or to follow up and actually continue the journey afterwards. But she was asked point blank, period, what was your biggest reason not to get weight loss surgery? And she said lack of stability.
What's the biggest reason you aren't getting weight loss surgery? Lack of stability. When you get weight loss surgery, they said you're going to need someone. You're going to need that one person to really, really support you. And right now with this breakup, I don't want to put Feline in that position at all.
Meaning, Feline wasn't going to be around. I wasn't going to have a support system. And if I was going to have one, I would have gotten it, But then she goes on to say, but I knew I wasn't going to get it anyway.
And before anyone gets this answer twisted, no, I did not know that Feline and I were not going to be together when I made the choice not to get weight loss surgery. Because at the time, it was because I knew I wasn't ready.
So I think she's just full of shit, honestly. So you can see her first instinct is to blame somebody else. If it weren't for Feline, I'd be on the operating table right now. Half my stomach would be gone. But that stability, you got to have it. What can you do? It's out of my control. Back in late 2024, Amber took a trip to Wisconsin to visit her girlfriend, Emily. In my opinion, I think she intended to move in. She took 3 pets, but she only came home with 2. Now, Amber made a huge mistake. She left a door open for 20 minutes, and one of her cats got out.
I was just doing things around the house. It was like 20 minutes later. I sat down in the chair and I felt like a super cold breeze. And I was like, that's weird. And then I put 2 and 2 together. I came over here. It's like I said, these were closed. I opened these. I peeked around the corner and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then that's when I knew.
Obviously, if you have been around gorlworld for very long, even if you haven't, you probably know what happened to Rarity. And Amber did say it was my fault, I left the door open, but she didn't just leave it at that. At the time, there was a lot of drama going on. This was when Alexis was speaking up a lot and talking about Amber. This was when a lot of the feeder allegations were going around. And also at that time, somebody had just dropped this kind of bombshell on gorlworld saying that I guess her ex-wife worked with Emily and left her for Emily. And she had all these crazy stories about Emily and the police, and all kinds of stuff was going on. And according to this person who had reached out to Jordy, or Jordy reached out to them, I guess, there was something about Emily keeping somebody in her basement because Emily was a known feeder, and apparently she was keeping a feedee like locked up in the basement. Now, that's alleged, you know. But of course, Amber is trying to distract and deflect and call everybody crazy for believing this stuff and really like going to bat for Emily. And she really didn't even know her all that well. But anyway, that's a whole other story. The point is, there was a lot of drama going on at the time. So that was a great scapegoat. And then so Amber then says, all of this was on my mind. I had so much stuff going through my mind. And that's why I didn't think to close the door.
My cat Rarity is missing, and I have done nothing but cry. It happened 2 nights ago, and I put full blame on myself because there's a yard, and that's where I let the dogs out to go to the bathroom, and it's through like a glass door, and I've just had a lot on my mind with everything that's been going on. And I'm not gonna lie, like, I've just been going through a lot, and I wasn't thinking, and I left the glass door open just like, I don't know, like this much. I thought I closed the door. It seemed like I did. I was half asleep with a million things on my mind, and this is how far I left it open.
So even though she said, I put the blame completely on myself, she then says, it's because I had so much on my mind, implying that if it wasn't for all of you, with all the drama, if it wasn't for Emily's ex or whoever, then I might have been in the right frame of mind and I would have closed the door. And she even sort of blamed Rarity for getting out.
But it literally just takes a second. And Rarity is like one of the most adventurous cats. She just wanted to venture out. I know, she just wanted to see.
And with Amber, you can imagine that if she goes to therapy or goes to a psychologist or something, which is questionable whether or not it actually happens at all, but if she did, you can imagine that with her intense need for attention and her general narcissism, that she probably would exaggerate or, you know, maybe give not quite accurate descriptions of her mental state or kind of her thought process and stuff like that. And so she claims to have been diagnosed with basically everything.
Obviously, I was diagnosed with depression. That is a given. I was diagnosed with anxiety/panic disorder. I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive personality disorder. I am bipolar. I have known for a very long time without actually being diagnosed that I am bipolar. Amberlynn, you got the BPD. It's like, yeah, I was diagnosed. I experience BPD things almost daily. But when I was diagnosed with panic disorder and anxiety disorder and having anxiety attacks and panic attacks,
I suffer with OCD. I suffer with massive anxiety. I have trauma. These things are professionally diagnosed.
but I do gain weight rather easily because of lymphedema. As you guys know, I was recently diagnosed with. I diagnosed myself with lymphedema, and then whenever I would see a doctor and I would say, yeah, I have lymphedema, and they'd look at it and they wouldn't like say, oh no, that's not lymphedema. Like they would never like say, that's not what that is. They would just like go with it. But no, I do not have the partial collapsed lung. That is what they first thought it was and what I was diagnosed with.
She has just had a laundry list of diagnoses and then later just says that they were misdiagnoses.
I understand doctors aren't perfect. I have recently been misdiagnosed multiple times, and it's frustrating that being misdiagnosed is a thing and can happen, but it's also common because doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, they are not robots.
It's just this program worries about people with BED or possible BED because you don't want your stomach to rupture after surgery or anything like that. Whether I was misdiagnosed in the past or not, the fact is I was diagnosed.
It wasn't that I gave them the wrong information, or it wasn't that I made them up for attention. It was misdiagnosis. You know, it was the doctor's fault. And I would imagine some of those diagnoses would have been just her jumping to conclusions. You know, when the lung thing happened, when she supposedly had a collapsed lung.
Part of my lung, God, I just feel like it's never ending. Part of my lung is collapsed. Like, a collapsed lung is kind of a scary thing.
Which turned out to just be a spot on her lung, which then she claimed was pneumonia, but that's a whole other thing. My guess would be that the doctor was like, well, it could be a lot of things, maybe a collapsed lung, it could be XYZ. And she was like, collapsed lung, oh, and then she started running with that. And instead of just owning up to the fact that she jumped to conclusions or made it up, she had to blame the doctor by saying it was a misdiagnosis.
I felt like I was battling this whole lung situation, and I just kept fighting for myself to figure out what was wrong and what can we do to fix it.
Because I don't think the doctor would have diagnosed a collapsed lung without really knowing for sure it was a collapsed lung. That seems like something that would need some pretty intense scrutiny before actually diagnosing it, you know? And then, of course, when she and Emily finally broke up,
The hecticana journal that was shipped out to me before we broke up.
we now know that Emily was just annoyed with her and really didn't like her. And it turns out that it could very well be that Amber was physically abusive towards Emily. Rachel came out with a video for a short amount of time before she ended up deleting it, where somebody had sort of social engineered a way to draw out some information from Emily through her Instagram DMs. And Emily, in a roundabout sort of way, admitted that Amber had been physical with her. Now, there's not really any proof of any of this. It's hard to find any of that because a lot of it's been deleted. But it's pretty clear that their relationship just sucked. But Amber will never admit or realize that she could be the problem. And so it was all of us. It was all the hate.
Anna, we broke up because the hate is too much for her. The rumors are too much, which I get it. And I'm not gonna lie, like, I tried to explain that to her before I even, like, revealed her. You know, I was like, I get a lot of hate. And I just didn't explain, like, the depth of it because I hadn't shown, like, a person I was in a relationship with for, like, years.
Now, Emily got a lot of negative attention, for sure. But she was pretty good at staying out of everything, just kind of staying in the background and not really being involved with gorlworld. Other than the fact that she did spend a lot of time responding to comments on her Instagram posts. So she got a lot of hate there. But if she had just stopped responding, she could have avoided basically all the hate. So I think it was far more likely that Amber was just a shitty partner, but Amber had to blame it on us. It couldn't be Code Red Mountain Dew Lynn. It had to be the haters. So there are probably a lot more examples of Amberlynn displaying an external locus of control, but these were just a few that I thought were interesting. And thank you again to Princess Pirate Pickle Pants for sending me the suggestion and pointing me in that direction. But it's very clear that Amberlynn is basically allergic to accountability. She just will never take it. She will never, ever admit fault for anything. Even when she does, she really doesn't. She'll say, I made a mistake because XYZ, some other factor. And like I said, there's only one person on the internet who I believe has an even more extreme external locus of control. And I think I'm going to cover him next. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I appreciate you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.